Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat with amazing humans about their journey and their story with mental health. For this episode, I'm so happy to introduce Simon Millington to the conversation. Welcome, Simon.
Hi, Matt. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. So as you've already exposed, we don't know each other that well, so this is good. So we're going to get to learn about each other. I don't know anything about your story, which is fab. But yeah, brief introduction. Simon and I met through a mutual community group in Facebook around mental health first aid instructors. So we are both mental health first aid instructors. I know that for a fact. And yeah, that's about all I know. So I'm going to just pass it over to you, Simon. Do an introduction. Let us know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm Simon Millington. I suppose my background mainly is in sports. Over the last 25 years, I've been a sports coach, sports development officer, a county coach developer, which is someone who trains grassroots football coaches at level 1, 2 and UEFA B. And I worked for the Football Association for the last 8 years. Prior to that, I worked in youth work, using sport as a vehicle to try and get young people who are not included in society as much as others. They're including in using sport as that vehicle to help them get fitter, help them get stronger, help them to recognize their strengths, and help them then work out where they're going to go next with their lives. So the youth work element was something I did in Portsmouth, where I'm originally from, although I was born in Birmingham. So prior to us coming on, Matt, I did say a bit of a gypsy lifestyle. I've moved around from place to place, and I'm currently residing in Spain after being made redundant from the FA last year, which was quite tough. I think when you get to 47, which I am now, and to get made redundant doing something you absolutely love is a tough time. And, I did find that quite challenging, but I like challenges. I like to try and work out how best to overcome them. And that's pretty much my approach to mental health. Because of the sport element, I'm very much on the proactive side. What can we do to equip young people as best we can with some of the skills to help them be a bit more robust with the slings and arrows that life can throw at people? And it's trying to, when I was a coach educator, I still am, but not full time, it was trying to make coaches aware of the impact of their behaviors on, to understand that young people need support, nurturing, not shouting and screaming at and telling they're rubbish. And so a big part of my work would be around, how do you build effective connections to show that you care genuinely, to then build character, confidence and competence. So there's a great paper that I got that from by Cote and Gilbert, who are Canadian academics, when I was studying at Worcester University a couple of years ago around athlete and coach learning. Because I got drawn to mental health first aid because throughout my life, I've known 10 people who've completed suicide.
Right.
The very first one was a friend when he was 21. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He was on medication, antipsychotic medication. And I felt back then as friends, we didn't understand it. We didn't really grasp what he was going through. We weren't as supportive as we potentially could have been because, his medication would give him shakes, a bit of Cervitis dance type stuff. And, we'd be like, what are you doing? You're acting odd. And we distanced ourselves in some respects, which then helped him be isolated. And I don't know if you know much about sometimes when they put people back into care. I mean, it was 26 years ago.
Right.
And they put him into accommodation within a council estate surrounded by people who weren't always had the best intentions towards people.
Yep.
They also released him with a lot of money in backdated care or benefits. So they released him into an area like that with about £1,500. He's 21, still trying to work out what to do. And he starts taking, recreational drugs like amphetamines and things like that, which are going to mess with his care plan. And unfortunately, because we weren't in and around him as much as we would like, you know, the first thing you find out about what's happened is my mate knocking on the door and saying, I've heard a rumor that so-and-so, I won't say his name just in case his family ever listen, but so-and-so's, you know, apparently taken his life. And then we go to the police station and it's confirmed by the police. You go to the place where it happened, where it's a place where we used to hang out as youngsters. And some of the young people who found him, you know, are just sat there discussing, wow, this is what was happened. This is how we found him. His hands underneath the rope, because they seem to think they didn't really want to complete suicide. He was just obviously high emotional distress. And he maybe tried not to, but you know, unfortunately, he'd been able to complete. So it seems to have been a theme throughout, you know, that area where I grew up, because I would say all of the people that I had known, you know, although my mate that I'll get to in a minute completed suicide 3 years ago, were all from Portsmouth. Right. And there's a bit of a thing, quite a macho area, quite repressed in men talking about feelings and how, you know, things impact them. A lot of recreational drug use and alcohol. People's lives or relationships fall apart, which is the common theme throughout these. So acquaintances and friends of friends would be that their relationship with their partner would end, and they'd go on a bender, drinking, taking drugs, and then impulse would mean either when they're high, they would complete suicide, or when they feel awful the next day after a high, they would complete suicide. Yeah. You know, and there's some tough stories in there, you know, so much. A guy who jumped off the pier to dive ended up disabled, but then living disabled, he just couldn't live with that because he's been full and active. Other people throwing themselves off high rises because they'd split with their partner. And I suppose when you've been with people lots of years, and this is why I try to take that proactive approach with people when I'm doing coaching, when I'm talking about mental health courses, because it's like, well, if we can help people understand that you will have lots of bumps in the road, that is a given. You know, my own father died when I was 6. We're in a house fire when I was young. We had to move from one area to another. You know, you do have these difficult times through your life. You know, that's a guarantee. You know, no one's going to evade that. You may get to the end of your life and it will start to happen, but it will happen. So when we prepare, or if we can prepare for that, then we're helping equip people to just look at things through a different lens. And just go, I can reframe what's happening to me. It's not nice, it's difficult, it feels real bad. But do I let it consume me? Do I understand that there are other approaches to it? And if we can equip people, you know, I was talking to my wife the other day, they're still teaching children about William the Conqueror. And, you know, we were talking about William the Conqueror, okay, brilliant. But what are we doing to help him understand how to have conversations about feelings, how to understand about resilience? You know, there was this shocking stat recently on the radio that I heard when this conversation was stimulated, that sexual abuse of young women in schools is through the roof. And you go, well, why are we not educating young people around respectful boundaries? That's not something we do, but we're teaching them about William the Conqueror. And you go, and it's never served me any use, knowing about William the Conqueror. But I think if we were to say to them, look, you're going to have tough times, there's going to be difficult times. Here's how you can manage your money. Here's how you can manage your emotional health and well-being. Here's how you conduct yourself as a decent person. You know, you don't go around touching people unless they ask you to. And, you know, even then, it shouldn't be happening in a school setting. Schools for going to get educated. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I'm very big on that principled approach to how you support people and how we try and help people develop to then manage this situation. because, you know, my friend who did it recently, 3 years ago, who really pushed me then to go, well, what can I do? What can I do to try and help address the number of people who are making this ultimate decision? Because 3 years ago, what was he, 45, 46, split with his partner again, successful, you know, quantity surveyor, working on building sites in London, earning good money, owner of a couple of properties, but had a difficult upbringing in relation to his not orphan, but putting a black person who was adopted by two white loving parents who brought him up, but obviously the cultural differences wouldn't be, he didn't have someone directly to resonate with in relation to his own cultural background. Growing up in Portsmouth at that time, which was quite racist as a place, you know, back in the 70s, 80s, you wouldn't see many black faces down there. So growing up as one of those black faces, you would be marginalized. Then his mum getting in touch with him after years and years, and him trying to find out what's my background, where am I from, all that sort of stuff. And then eventually her turning around and saying to him, I never wanted you anyway, you know. So all these little things that triggered in him to make that decision. But it was one of those situations where tears of the clown a little bit, Matt. You couldn't see it when you spoke to him.
No.
And it wasn't until I started to do the mental health instructor training where people started to talk about language and people not seeing a future and no hope and I wouldn't be missed. And you think, oh, well, he did say things like that in a jokey fashion.
Yeah.
You know, he would brush it off. Oh, you guys won't miss me anyway if I'm not around, you know. But he lived in Teddington. We lived out in the coast of Kent. So it would be phone conversations. You don't always pick up on those nuanced bits as well as you could. But one of the things I found astounding at that time was he bought a book off the internet, How to Complete Suicide, off Amazon.
Really? Wow.
Which gave him all the tips and hints around best rope, how to put tarpaulin underneath the loft hatch, put a key in the front door so the police don't have to kick the front door down, select a time if you live with others that they're going to be out or away for the weekend. So all these things that, you know, because you don't see people all the time, you're not in around them, you don't know that he's buying certain products and doing certain things. And it was then, you know, it was quite astounding. We were on holiday in a place called Kessingland up in Ipswich for a little weekend away. Got the phone call from his ex-girlfriend who said, I don't know if you've heard this. And straight away, I got tinnitus in my right ear. It was so strange. And I don't know if it's stress related or anything else, because it was the first time. Because he was a good mate, but, you know, we weren't close, you know, it was, and that's why it was odd how it impacted me. Physically it impacted me, emotionally it made me quite upset. And I was a bit like taken aback by that, like, oh, I didn't think me and Richie were that close, but we actually were. You know, so that situation, and then you go to the funeral and you see pictures that are selected and you contribute some of the pictures. And my mate from that area, he said, wow, look at his eyes. They were just so cold, you know, like shark's eyes, where you could see no joy in them. Even in all the pictures where he's holding my son or we're sat having some fun. He's a big Brentford fan, and I thought the other day, you know, Brentford getting to the Premier League, he would have been over the moon with that. You think, I wish you'd have seen it, because he used to drag me along to all Brentford games when they were in League One and League Two, which was like an experience, but not one that was enjoyable. And that was when I was just motivated to go, well, surely I can use my tutoring skills from football and what I've learned in and around how adults learn or like to develop, you know, how we can try and make it bespoke to them and their needs and wants, so they come away from mental health training with what they desire. Because I don't know if you're similar, when people come on courses, they're motivated because of either lived experience or because they want to make a difference in other people's lives. I don't find people who are quite cold or hard about mental health coming on at all. So it was, how can I help people to understand mental health better? It's helped me understand it a bit more through the study and the training that we have to go through to become accredited instructors.
Yeah.
And then you go, and right, now I feel I'm contributing to people actually understanding it, and what they do with that information is obviously personal and down to them. You get feedback, as you would know, people saying, this has been really impactful for me. I found that I'm starting to look at things in this way. And because I work in the grassroots football sector, it's trying to equip people with, well, think about your young people that you coach and how you can be better as a coach around your own behaviours, performance, and the environment you create. But then also around your other community, your family, your colleagues, and how you can equip these skills and use them across that sector to try to recognise when someone is, showing signs of distress, or you've noticed changes in behaviour, and be brave enough to have that conversation and go, I've noticed recently that this is not you. You don't seem as, you have been before. Would you like a discussion about it? And then see where that goes from there. Because when I was younger, I did have my own mental health challenges, not massive, but a bit of paranoia, usually from recreational drug use when I was a teenager. Okay. And, you get to a stage where you start to doubt things, you start to think things, you start to hear things. And, I was put on medication. I can't even remember the name of it. I drank on that, and it paralyzed me down half my body.
Wow.
And I had to go into the hospital and have adrenaline, which then sorted me back out. But I was like, right, from then on, I don't want nothing to do with these prescribed drugs, because this is giving me an allergic reaction. Yeah. And you start to go, well, there's got to be other ways for people to navigate mental ill health. And, if we can use health, fitness, I'm a great believer that mindfulness, connecting with nature, getting out walking. Yep. When I used to live on the coast of Kent, walking by the sea, I found was just amazing for me. Yeah. And, where I live now, just outside Malaga, there's loads of mountains. And to go walking in the mountains in the heat, and it's very isolating, it's nice. I just find that the most proactive way. But going back to Portsmouth, there were children who would live in Portsmouth in the centre who had never been to the beach, which was a mile away. Yeah. And I think, well, if these children are growing up in quite challenging urban areas with high population rates, Portsmouth's got one of the highest population rates in Europe per square foot, which is quite intense. And you haven't been taking your children to the beach where they could just walk along, salty sea air, listen to the waves, feel the wind on your face, just to help you, try and connect with nature a little bit. You do think, well, people do need some advice and support around, do you know that this is quite a nice way for your child to reset, recalibrate, just understand that there's something different to that intense cooker pot in that housing estate where they're growing up. I think for me, mental health and where I am from it is be proactive, be brave to have conversations with people, and be brave enough that if someone is really looking distressed, to ask them, do you want to live anymore? I did a course recently, a free online course through the University College of London, around dual diagnosis, because I've got a condition called ulcerative colitis, and just learning more about how physical conditions can impact your mental well-being and outlook was interesting to me. But what I found fascinating on there was the psychologist, and it was a role play situation, but it was very well done. There was a video there, the guy's got diabetes, he's struggling with managing his diabetes, has done for a while, drinks too much. But the conversation, the supportive conversation that the psychologist had with him about, do you want to live anymore? And the way he managed that conversation, I think is a great example for mental health first aiders who maybe are not exposed to these type of conversations to go, well, let me just vicariously look at how someone, and although they're a professional and they may find it hard to connect with a professional doing it in, little old me, can I do that? But it just gave some great insights into the questions, the pace of the questions, how the person responded, because I've never had the conversation where I've had to speak to someone and say, do you want to live anymore? And then come back to me and say, no. So I imagine that is quite distressful to hear that information. So to see it on a video and you can see someone is a start. It's a start to go, well, actually, I can see some insights into that, because we talk about it, don't we, on the courses?
Yep.
But to actually see an example, I found very, very useful. And for me, I really want the people to be brave enough in their communities to be able to have that conversation and understand that if someone feels, what's the word, that you've been a bit too personal, it's better to have that awkwardness than it is to actually go, that I didn't ask that question. I felt I needed to ask that question, and then someone's, gone on to take their own life, and you don't want to be living with that. Oh, if only I have said, if only I had done that, because I don't know if you've been in the situation yourself, but being someone who's had someone close who's completed suicide, you do get the guilt around, did I do enough? Did I pick up on it enough? Could I have, you still drive past. If I'm in England and I'm driving around the M25 and the turn off of the M3 to Teddington's there, I'll go, pangs of guilt. Oh, my mate, would he still be there? And that it's their decision. They made that choice.
It's hard, isn't it? It really is. And I've been in the situation asking the question of real people, not role play ones, and actually I think when you're trained and you have that experience of learning about it, or you've at least evolved, and that's why suicide first aid training or mental health first aid training with the suicide elements that we talk about, I think is really valuable, because at that moment of crisis, you've got to make a judgment. You've got to say, I'm worried about you and I'm here to support you. And when somebody does talk about suicide thoughts or plans, whatever it is that they divulge to you, and I've only ever sort of seen it as a really positive step forward. I know it's really bad and it's not something we want to ever come across necessarily, but always quite positive, isn't it? That survivor guilt, or that sort of, I should have done something. And I've had that a few times with people. I don't know about you, but I just sort of always say, look, you're looking at the story in rewind, but you're only highlighting the parts where you would have seen something. Put your life into the perspective of, it's all in normal play. You've got a million other things going on in your life, work and home and family and jobs and money and everything else. And that one conversation is the one that you're pinpointing as being, oh my God, I saw it. And you didn't, because you would never have seen it a second time round, third time round, unless tune into that conversation. You said it, right? Which is the words that were being used. I don't see the point in carrying on, or people wouldn't miss me anyway. And it's just a simple then conversation, is it?
Yeah. And that for me is what I say to people on all the courses is, if we can just make it a topic of conversation, because we're quick to moan about, oh, I've got a bad back. If we can get to a stage where I'm feeling mentally unwell, I just want to have a conversation about it, and it's an everyday topic, then that stigma discrimination that we know fuels people not divulging and not being willing to share because they're scared of the repercussions for whatever their context is. You go, well, actually, if we can normalize conversations about mental health and get people to be happy just talking about it, we've made great strides forward. And I think, for me, that's why I tutor mental health courses, because it's just something that is happy. And we know historically the institutions and the repercussions of that. Because if I go back to my friend who was schizophrenic and he was arrested, and when you went into a secure hospital, me and my friend, both only 20, 21, were scared.
Yeah.
We went into him and he had like a room, you know, but they locked the room at night and things like that. But it was more like a shared space where they could go and, you know, play pool, and there was other people. But because you saw lots of people there who were mentally unwell in one place, and they were quite unwell because they'd been put into that place because it was quite scary for us. And we didn't know how to react to that in the most appropriate way.
Yep.
You know, and we're looking at our friend going, what are you doing in here? What has gone on? So you've ended up in this hospital, hospital secure unit type thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that comes down to our complete lack of education or appreciation of, you know, what mental ill health was. And, you know, we touched on, my son's getting taught about William the Conqueror.
Yeah.
If we'd have had some sort of training in PSHE around, you know, this is part of life. It could happen to you.
Yep.
It could happen to people in and around you. This is how you can be more supportive. Because I think we know that now social media, even more prevalent, and phones, exposes people who are unwell, mentally unwell, even more to persecution and discrimination.
Of course, yeah.
And it's constant unless they turn it off or break the phone. You know, so you think we've got to equip our young people with more skills around recognizing this is just someone's opinion, it's not fact. I am who I am. How do we help them become more self-aware of what they are, where they value who they are, where they would like to improve or develop other areas of themselves? So they then have that focus around, I've just got to focus on me.
Yeah.
I can be collaborative and I can work with others, but that self-care element of put myself first, protect myself, protect the people in and around me, and then don't sweat the rest. Try and make sure as best you can, because it's a very vulnerable time, the teenage years, and that's why I came in initially training as a youth instructor, then, you know, an adult, because I thought, well, actually, I've always worked with teenagers. Teenagers are fascinating young people. They're evolving. And we need to get away from labeling them as, oh, those pesky teenagers are a pain in the backside. To go in, they're having a tough time.
Yeah.
They aren't quite navigating it properly, or they are. How do we support and help them through that tough time into adulthood? And that's why I did the youth courses initially. But the adult training now, you know, is more at the reactive end of the scale, I think, where you may be working with colleagues and they have anxiety, depression, and not finding life as easy. And that presenteeism that we can come across within a workplace, I think it's important for colleagues to recognize that, because I think I had some of that towards the end of my time with the FA because of the redundancy cloud hanging over your mind. Trying to deal with colitis, trying to understand how everything was working. You know, people almost making comments that you're a bit of a mood hoover, and you need to be, you know, I want people. People could only come into these meetings if they're positive. And you go, what if I'm not feeling positive that day?
Even positive people sometimes have a bad day, right?
And where's the
interesting
pragmatism? Some people view pragmatism as negative rather than, well, no, it's just asking for a pause to consider things rather than going, let's steam ahead and deal with the consequences later. So at that time, you know, if someone was a bit more mentally health aware, they may have been a bit more supportive because I don't know if you've supported people through the redundancy process, Matt, but I think there's definitely an area for HR to look at around people need to get support during that time. And it's not, I'm going to signpost you to an employment assistance program, because I think if you know employment assistance programs, you can get signposted to someone, make a phone call. They can assign you a counsellor, but the counsellor might not be the right fit, and it could take a while. And you know, if we have more mentally health aware colleagues who can just recognise, well, actually, this is tough. We need to do a little bit of work with people around what are your thoughts if you don't get retained and retrained, what will happen to you? Because that's a good investment in time and effort. And then having that support package for people, because they're okay giving you stuff afterwards. Here's a CV workshop, here's this, here's how to market yourself in the workplace. But you go, well, I'm not in the mental state of mind.
It's the aftercare. It's the aftercare emotional support.
And also through the pandemic, the job market was, you know, a bit of a disaster.
Quite bad,
So you're trying to say to people, well, we've got to kick you out because we haven't got enough money. Good luck. Here's a nice shiny CV, and we wish you all the best. So it's nothing to say that that organisation should have done better, but it's to try and get future organisations or organisations considering what their mental health policies and procedures are. Is mental health at the core of what they do? Is employee welfare at the core of what they do? Or is it on the periphery? So
I'm with you on that journey. I agree. I you know, that's what we're trying to position as well, isn't it? You know, having mental health first aiders is part of the plan, not the plan. That's the key, isn't it, to this? And I think that's something we're very consciously sort of, and I know you've posted about the Stevenson and Farmer review and the core standards of sort of workplace mental health. And you know, and I talk about that too, and it's similar sort of things. Simon, we're over our half an hour now. It's incredible, isn't it? No, but you know, you've told an amazing sort of overview and introduction as to, you know, why you do what you do. I think it's very clear, very, very prevalent, you know, in terms of supporting those conversations. I will throw it over to you in a second, just for your final thoughts, if you've got any little snippets of gold that you want to share with anybody. But just a huge thank you from me as well. Thank you for sharing what you've shared and talking about, you know, the way that you grew up and the environment and area that you grew up in, of course, and those challenges that you've experienced with others that you know who have tragically taken their own lives during the course of your journey with all of this too. So thank you so much for sharing that. Really do appreciate it. Any final thoughts, gold dust, anything, snippets?
For me, it is always that one around self-care, and we use one from the football world and it comes actually from a New Zealand rugby player. And it's around rehabilitation and what is the ice that you use for your mind. You know, so we have ice packs for injuries and impact injuries, but what do people have as part of their self-care routine, their ice for their mind? And I like people to consider that, because I work with football coaches a lot. It's trying to help them recognise and connect the intertwined element that you cannot separate physical from mental. You know, they are connected, they are vital. See both as an holistic thing rather than, oh, I don't have mental health. Well, you do. You very much do. And it's just a case of, if you can get the balance of both and recognize how to put ice on your mind when it needs it, then, you know, you'll be in a good place for looking after yourself, and then being able to support others in and around your community.
Brilliant stuff. Wise word. Great tips. Thank you so much for sharing that, Simon. Really do appreciate it. For anybody that's listening, you've been listening to two middle-aged men. We're both similar, very similar age, Simon, as well. And it's like, I thought we were both in our late 30s maximum. But you know, this is a conversation that men, we want to be picking up, right? We are losing too many men to suicide. Simple fact. It's so true. It's preventable if we can engage in conversation sooner. So I love the fact that, you know, two middle-aged men are sitting down talking about suicide and mental health and all these things, not loving the fact fact that there is this reality that is so bad and dark with that, but just we're talking about it. That's what this is all about. This podcast is there for exactly that purpose. We do similar things in our day jobs. Doesn't mean we're against each other. It means we work together. That's the most important part of this too, continuing the conversations together. If you are struggling, if you have found this conversation difficult to listen to, if you're a man that's listened to this who is worried or struggling or concerned about anything, no, you can always reach out to myself or Simon. Simon, that's okay for you, right? Just get your permission.
Absolutely perfect.
And of course, there are organizations out there today that exist to help support these conversations. Samaritans is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 116 123 is the number. Please do know somebody is just there to listen. They're not there to tell you what to do, how to do it. It's all about listening, supporting conversations. If you don't want to pick up the phone, you can text 85258. I always have to think about the two in the middle, but yeah, 85258, text to shout. And there are many other organizations out there today supporting these conversations. You are not alone. That's the key message. Somebody out there is waiting to talk to you. You just need to reach out and just say, I need some help. Thank you so much, Simon. Really do genuinely appreciate the time with you today. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and to hear more of your story. So stay safe. Thank you, Matt. Well.
I really appreciate you giving me the platform and the time to have a conversation.
Hey, I don't mind doing this for amazing people. So well done. I'll catch you soon, Simon. Take it easy, mate.
Thank you.
Cheers.